Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. A summit of the heads of governments of countries from Central and Eastern Europe and China was held today in Dubrovnik, Croatia. The summit, initiated in 2012 in Warsaw, is intended primarily to develop economic cooperation between the countries of the region and China. From Dubrovnik, Alexander Zajicka reports.
The incident occurred on Thursday just before 5 p.m. at the St. Augustine parish in the Wola district in Warsaw. The perpetrator entered the presbytery and attacked a person he met by chance with a glass tool. The victim was one of our parishioners. He came to the presbytery with his wife for confession before Easter. His wife stayed in the chapel to finish her confession, while he went to his car to get a box of chocolates for the priest as an Easter gift. That's when the man attacked him in the hallway of the presbytery. He beat him to death. The attacker also targeted the priest, who was trying to defend the victim. Much points to the fact that he was under the influence of drugs. He was exceptionally aggressive. The police officers had trouble restraining the man, even though there were 4 of them. They had to try different ways of neutralizing the threat, since they couldn't handle him physically. The policemen very quickly arrived at the crime scene. The police officers showed up at the scene 3 minutes after the crime was reported. After they overpowered the aggressor, he lost consciousness and didn't show signs of life. The officers then gave him CPR and the man was taken to a hospital, where he went into a coma. Priest Walenty Królak said the crime had no motive other than pure hatred and a need to kill. It was purely accidental. The attacker had no connection to the victim whatsoever. It was simply bad luck that the victim was passing him at the time. I have no idea what made the attacker do all this, what was inside him. This will probably have to be explained by the doctors under what influence he was. There were no religious or financial motives. The police are investigating the matter further.
The Senate has adopted, without any amendment, the Pension Plus bill, which provides for an additional month's pension payment. The Senate has voted for the bill, 81 in favour, 1 against, with 2 abstentions. Under the bill, pensioners will receive an additional payment of 1,100 zloty gross, that's just over 888 zloty net, each May. The bill will now go to the President for signature. Almost 10 million pensioners are eligible for this additional payment. A tragic incident occurred yesterday at the parish church of St. Augustine in Warsaw. A man, allegedly under the influence of drugs, entered the church grounds and attacked another man for no apparent reason as he was leaving the presbytery. The victim was stabbed to death. Moments earlier, the dead man had made his confession before Easter.
This was already the 8th meeting of the Central and Eastern European countries and China in this Formula 16+1. The main topics of the discussion are around economic, trade and investment cooperation between the 16 and the 1 China. Poland wants to stress that the cooperation will be equal in both directions. Poland is moving towards increasing exports to China. In Dubrovnik, they also discussed the possible projects around the idea of the new Silk Road, which is like a glove thrown down at the 16 countries by the superpower. Poland wants to be involved, as the Prime Minister Morawiecki has made clear.
China is actually open to goods and services from other countries, but there is a system of various certifications, extra licenses by local authorities and central government, which are an obstacle for Polish businesses. I have talked earlier with Polish business owners who export to China, and they told me about them. This is what I told the Prime Minister Li Keqiang.
The Polish Prime Minister described the results of the summit as very positive and gave few examples of increased trade in the area of agriculture specifically. Those were results of a private meeting of PM Morawiecki with his Chinese counterpart. The first meeting of the 16+1 took place in Warsaw, and recently Greece was invited, so the formula will become 17+1.
The 5th day of the teachers' strike didn't interfere with the holding of the middle school examinations. The head of the Polish Teachers' Union, Sławomir Broniarz, said today that the strike might become a major problem for next month's Polish school leaving examinations. It seems that a political element of the teachers' strike is becoming ever clearer.
The third day of examinations, despite the continuing strike, took place without any problems. Many people who can't and shouldn't strike are sitting in the examination commission like school directors. There are also many people who don't strike because they don't want to. I asked an educator to hold off with his strike to help the children. So the teachers can do a lot to help their students. Although there are some rumors about problems with the upcoming Polish school leaving examination, the Minister of Education ensures that it's the director's duty to call the classification council in which the teachers don't have to take part.
Żądania nie mogą powodować.
The teachers' demands cannot result in society's loss. I think the students' parents will meet with the teachers on Monday and talk to them. Today, the head of the Polish Teachers Union appealed to the government to reopen the talks.
The strike will continue during Christmas. It's free time for students, but not for the teachers. Is the Polish school leaving examination at risk? Well, yes.
The Polish Teachers Union didn't accept the government's proposal presented a week ago. The proposal concerned an increase in the teachers' working hours. The protesters claimed that this solution would result in teachers being sacked. We have an agreement on the table. The Solidarity Trade Union signed it. Thanks to these regulations, a graduate teacher can earn even 7,700 zlotys monthly. According to the publicist Rafał Ziemkiewicz, the Polish Teachers Union's actions are intended to destroy the government.
What seemed to be the Polish Teachers Union's priority, so the teachers weren't the priority at all. They wanted to make a national scandal which is supposed to last until the elections. The Kaczynski 5 campaign promises hurt them. There is money for pensioners, but what about them?
Today, the Polish Teachers Union made the decision to continue the strike during the Christmas break as well. The 8th graders' exam will begin on Monday.
The privately funded Israeli space mission has ended in disappointment. The $100 million probe, inspired by the Bible and named Beginning, crashed to the surface of the moon after a malfunction prevented the spacecraft from slowing down during the final stages of its descent. Israeli Premier Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that another attempt will be made in the future.
The Israeli spacecraft Bereshit crashed onto the moon after a series of technical failures during its final descent, shattering hopes of a historic controlled landing on the lunar surface. The unmanned robotic lander suffered periodic engine and communications failures during the 21 minutes or so of the landing sequence. Bereshit had traveled through space for 7 weeks in a series of expanding orbits around Earth, before crossing into the moon's gravity pull last week. So far, only 3 nations have succeeded in carrying out a soft landing on the lunar surface: the United States, the Soviet Union and China.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Good evening, I'm Paulina Otterstein and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. First, let's start with tonight in Poland. So as we can see, the temperatures will vary quite a bit. 5 degrees in Krakow and Katowice and -2 in Olsztyn, -1 will be seen in Bydgoszcz as well as in Białystok, 2 degrees in central Poland, and showers are expected in the area of Zielona Góra. And now let's move on to tomorrow. So tomorrow, nice and sunny in the north around Olsztyn and Gdańsk. The rest of the country will also be sunny, but some showers will be appearing in the southern parts around Krakow, Katowice, also in Zielona Góra and Szczecin. The maximum temperature tomorrow will be 12 degrees in the southern parts and 11 in the southeast around Lublin, also in Warsaw we will see 11 degrees. The minimum will be 7 in Gdańsk. And now let's check the forecast for the next 3 days. So on Sunday, quite a bit warmer, 13 degrees will be the maximum in the southwest. On Monday, 12 degrees will be the maximum, 9 degrees will be the minimum in central Poland as well as in the northwest. And on Tuesday, 13 degrees in almost all of the country and 12 degrees will be the minimum in the northwest. This is all for tonight. I'm wishing a beautiful evening. Thank you.
Poland Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight our guest is Professor Zbigniew Krysiak of Warsaw School of Economics. Sir, welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you.
We are literally days ahead of the 15th anniversary of entering Poland to the European Union. It accidentally happened on May 1st, when there is a communist holiday or work holiday or something like that, very much celebrated during the Soviet Union time. And right now we will remember that as entering Poland to the United Europe. What is the wrap-up? What is the balance of this?
Yeah, you mentioned about the Soviet Union, and I think you know that after the enthusiasm, which was, related to very beginning, different picture we had, I think, and different picture we draw, it seems to be different now. I mean, we notice currently that, there is going to be a kind of a very centralized system. It's not going to be community of European nations. It's going to be very, bureaucratic, organization. And the very positive thing is that we became more and more aware. We in Poland, but as well the people in the other countries. And the positive thing is that we started to take over our job, our responsibility to be, in the role, to impact, to influence that what is happening. It's not very easy, but, the awareness about that seems to be giving a certain, a chance and a power to a little bit, at least on the beginning, to bring this, a track of the, European Union in different direction.
Right. We have a time of phenomenal economical growth, 4%, 5%. This is the number of GDP annual growth of Poland. Other European nations don't have this comfort. The Spain, Italy, all the Eurozone except Germany and Holland is developing slower than expected. Is it that because everyone subscribed to these beautiful words about solidarity, pan-European way of solving the problems, and some countries, Germany, decided that this is on their benefits and they don't want to give a shit. And this is their business and interest of Germany first.
Yeah, exactly. As we noticed the development of the Europe after the Second War, when this Europe was basically directed by Robert Schuman, Konrad Adenauer, we noticed a very, as well, positive development in the economy. Since I would say 2 or 3 decades, when the rule was taken by the Artiello Spinelli guys, who are going to create a basically centralized system, a kind of a Soviet Union system, believe me. So, but coming back, to these numbers about, the economy. So the very, example of a wrong direction and the decision was the euro area. As you really mentioned, the euro area is developing much more slower than it could be when, basically we would not have a common currency. And especially, the centralized banking system and a central bank staying in the Germany give a certain, better position for Germans. One thing important, to mention is that the euro currency basically is, reflecting very well, the German economy, but the others' economy are basically not in that position to be reflected by the, exchange rate of the euro.
Can the euro be fixed to be more beneficial to the France, Spain, Italy, Greece, those southern countries that suffered a lot during the crisis in 2008.
Yeah, exactly. As we have current reports about that issue of the euro and the, gainers, losers, and winners. So we notice that only the Germany and a little bit, Netherlands, are winners, and the rest of the Europe, the France, Italy, and the others are losers.
So this is the diagnosis. What will be the curation?
How to cure that? Basically, yes, we really need to come back to the, a concept of the Robert Schuman. A community of European nations. The community as well, to remove that, basically bureaucratic and centralized system in the Brussels. The very important, very concrete thing is we need to, change the structure of the managerial position in the Commission, because, for instance, currently you have around 1,200 managers or directors in the European Commissions are coming from Germany, 900 from France, and only, you have 120 from Poland and very few from the other central European countries. It shows that, this not democratic, established positions, managerial positions, are basically, manipulating into the direction of the German interest.
Okay, so that's you propose the institutional changes within the European Union, the way it is governed, and then this should reflect to the financial system, to the European Central Bank, and the subsequently Euro.
Yeah, exactly. My suggestion is basically to bring, this, a structure of the in the Commission, the managers, to the more, a democratic, reflecting, the population in the particular countries. So, like Poland, we have a bigger influence on that, and before we are going to do that, we need to establish, as I'm as well suggesting, a big Schuman fraction in the European Parliament, because some bigger body. So the Schuman fraction could, account around the 300, MP members, and this fraction can, basically vote and impact and influence the decision to change the organization of the European Commission.
The European centralists demand more power transferred from the countries, from the national parliaments, national governments, to the Brussels, to the bureaucrats. Is that a viable way? Will this bureaucracy work better?
On the very beginning, never was that, approach, We were, as Schuman and Adenauer were viewing that, basically, we wanted to have in some central place only these functions which are giving a certain synergy. But since 2 decades, we noticed that basically all decisions are, located in the Brussels. So this turned to a very wrong direction. So this never was the purpose, of the, fathers who established the Community of European Nations.
We see the totalitarian nature of the European tribunal of justice that is defining its own rules. It is consequently breaking its tractatory or treaties, and it's okay because the tribunal said that that's all right. So
yes, exactly. This is, excuse me for that. What I'm going to say, the Justice Tribunal in the Strasbourg is a kind of a justice court in Poland during the communistic time, which is, bringing basically taking a position of the advocate of these guys in the Brussels, which is a very wrong, direction.
Thank you very much, Zbigniew Krysiak, professor of Warsaw School of Economics. In 15th anniversary of Poland joining European Union, and now we are apparently want to have more to say about how this institution is being ruled. But that's probably the topic of the next Poland Daily Business, to which you are very much introduced already. Sir, thank you.
Thank you very
that
much.
was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Good evening, this is Poland Daily Weather and I'm Paulina Otterstein. So tomorrow in our country it will be still quite a bit cooler, but the maximum temperature will be 12 degrees in Rzeszów as well as in Krakow, 11 degrees in Lublin, also in the capital. 10 degrees will be seen around Bydgoszcz, Poznań, Zielona Góra and also in Lower Silesia around Wrocław. Some showers will be appearing in the western parts of the country, also in Krakow and Katowice, and the country should be still nice and sunny, but some clouds will be appearing here and there as well. The most sunny places will be Olsztyn and Gdańsk tomorrow. And now let's see what will happen in Europe. So the best place to go on holidays should be Madrid with 21 degrees, although it won't be very sunny tomorrow. 17 degrees in Lisbon with some showers as well. The coolest will be the area of Stockholm in Sweden, 6 degrees, 8 degrees in Oslo, also in London with showers appearing there as well. And this is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon.
The National Museum in Krakow was established by a resolution of the Krakow City Council on October 7, 1879, as the first national museum institution at a time when the Polish people were deprived of their own statehood and country, which had been appropriated by the partitioning powers of Austria, Russia, and Germany. Until the end of World War I, it was the only such large museum accessible to the public in the Polish lands, and to this day remains the institution with the largest numbers of collections, buildings, and permanent exhibitions. The collection of the National Museum in Krakow was begun with Nero's torches, Henryk Szymanowski's painting presented to the city of Krakow by the artist himself on October 5, 1879, with the intention of creating a gallery of national art in the Sukiennica, the cloth hall. The following day, October 6, 1879, 39 artists attending the celebration of Józef Ignacy Kraszewski's 50 years of work as an author gathered in Konrad Wenzel's townhouse at the main market square and promised donations of their works to form the initial collection of the newly formed museum. The artist's example was soon emulated by private individuals who began to send donations to the museum in the Sukiennica.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. Today we're taking you to Krakow, to the house of Jan Matejko, a great Polish painter. Today my guest is Mrs. Marta Kłak-Ambroszkiewicz, the curator of the exhibition here and of the museum. Hello and welcome. So when was the museum opened and by whom?
The museum was established 121 years ago. It's open on every day of the week, except for Mondays. In the summer season, from May to August, the museum is open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And in the winter season, from September to April, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And who stood by the idea of opening this museum here?
The idea of establishing this museum appeared during preparations of his funeral when Jan Matejko died. The councillors of the city of Krakow started wondering what kind of monument to build for Matejko, and one of his old co-workers, the history of art professor Marian Sokołowski, came up with an idea of creating a museum in artist's house, the house when he was born, when he spent most of his life in Poland during partitions. He wanted to create a biographical museum. Volunteers, artists, former students, and famous people from the world of art and culture from Krakow, and not only from Krakow, accepted the idea. It took 3 years to prepare the museum's first room. The museum was opened in 1898. The role of this museum is to remind people about Jan Matejko's life and work, about his diverse activities, and so that it would also become an educational place for the next generations of Poles who learn about the Polish history.
And what are the exhibitions here? Because I know
We restored the first historical exhibition from 1898 last year. The first exhibition guide was published in 1898. At that time, the exhibition was located on only one floor of the house. At that time, the exhibition was located on only one floor of the house. The exhibition was located in black rooms, which Matejko used, so the dining room. The exhibition was located in black rooms, which Matejko used, so the dining room, his wife's boudoir. In the guidebook, the then author of the text, Dr. Adolf Sterschnus, wrote about the museum's events. When the initiators of the museum collected enough money, the next floor of the house was opened for the visitors in the 30s of the 20th century, and we could recreate the entire exhibition according to this guide in 2018. The very first exhibitions fortunately survived in the basement of Jan Matejko's house. This year, because we celebrate 115 years of Jan Matejko House being part of the National Museum in Krakow, and the Krakow National Museum celebrates its 140th anniversary, we decided to keep this historical exhibition in order to fulfill the wishes of our visitors. We will be trying to recreate an exhibition as expected by the visitors who search for biographical information about the artist and his work in the following years.
Artyście, a potem jego twórczości.
Just how strong the need to create such an institution was is exemplified by the fact that soon after the opening of the first museum exhibition in September 1883, the volume of donations grew exponentially. Not only single objects, but whole collections were donated. From the outset, the museum gathered works by contemporary and historic Polish artists from wherever they had lived or worked. The items collected included national mementos and objects connected with individuals recognized for their services to the country or otherwise relevant to national history and culture, including art prints, manuscripts, old prints, numismatics, decorative art objects, and militaria. As far as possible, examples of foreign art, including Far Eastern art, were collected as well. The turn of the 20th century coincided with a change of director at the National Museum, following the unexpected death of Professor Władysław Uszczkiewicz on May 23, 1900. The committee of the National Museum announced a competition which selected Dr. Felix Kopera, until then the director of Count Emeryk Hutenczapski's museum in Krakow, and his appointment followed on April 25, 1901. In the same period, the museum doubled its floor space after the Friends of the Art Society vacated the other wing of the Sukiennica. Following renovation work, an entirely new, considerably larger modern exhibit was arranged, which, in addition to showing artworks chronologically and thematically, also included archaeological and ethnographic objects. The collecting of the latter was discontinued soon thereafter due to shortage of space and in light of the rise of institutions specializing in these areas.
And how would you describe Jan Matejko as a painter? Because I know he painted a lot of portraits, but how do you think he should be described?
Jesteśmy teraz w dwóch pokojach domów.
We are now in 2 rooms of the house where Jan Matejko lived with his sons. The wall between those rooms was removed in the first years of the museum, in 1904 to be exact. It was removed because initiators were trying to create a mini gallery of paintings. We are in possession of only several dozen paintings by Jan Matejko. It's worth reminding that he is an author of 122 oil paintings confirmed by the authorship. We are sitting surrounded by portraits. People ordered portraits, and he was doing that for a living. He painted the portraits of famous people, but also his friends, family, and children. On the other side, we have a mini gallery of historical paintings. These, after all, draw the most attention of the viewers. The painting that we have here today, the painting of the Queen Bona, Matejko started to paint during his studies in Munich and finished in this very house in 1858. The painting was recognized by the critics as the first mature historical painting, and it all started from this painting. After that, Matejko was painting a colorful theater of historical figures, props, great costumes, details, but also a metaphor. He taught Poles how to evaluate the history and how to learn from it.
I wyciągania z niej wniosków.
And what do you think are his most significant contributions into Polish art?
Jan Matejko jest niewątpliwie
Jan Matejko is undoubtedly the most famous Polish artist, not just in Poland, but in Europe as well. During his life, so in the 19th century, he achieved great, enormous success. We can't even really comprehend how great of a success it was. In 1864, a 26-year-old painter from Krakow, then under Austrian partition, presented his piece called Sermon of Piotr Skarga on an international art exhibition in Paris. The painting reflects on the complicated history of Poland. This painting received a gold medal on this exhibition in Paris. And ever since that moment, Matejko's career in Europe bloomed. His paintings would travel across not just Europe, but they would also reach United States, always receiving the greatest accolades. Today, looking from perspective of over 100 years, we may wonder how much did that 19th century French or Americans know about Polish history. These paintings spoke for themselves with panic. The colorfulness of the costumes the characters wore, the sheer amount on those characters, and an incredible artistic skill.
trafiały do widzów i budziły zastanowienie się jednak nad tą sceną, którą obraz przedstawiał. Budziły też
The
zainteresowanie.
paintings grasped the audience's attention. They sparked interest in Polish history. We must also remember that Jan Matejko was, and I dislike this word, but he was indeed a celebrity for his time. He was immensely popular. And in 1878 he was awarded scepter in Krakow, which made him a ruler of the art in Poland. To the Poles living in the 19th century, Matejko was the king of painting. When we were organizing an art exhibition with the Kunsthal Art Museum in Bonn, Germany last year, Jan Matejko's paintings and biography were presented in front of 6 other European painters of his time. It turned out that he was not only the king of Polish painters, he was also the king of European 19th century painters. Putting his paintings against the creations of Macquart, Mucaccio, Lord Leighton or Combach proved how outstanding Matejko's paintings were. None of these other painters received as much praise and accolades for their work in their life.
Hołdu, podziękowań za swoją twórczość i takich nagród.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are at the city of Lublin, one of the oldest and most historical city of Eastern Poland. We'll be going to the Catholic University of Lublin to talk to a professor, a Polish Canadian, who wrote the first history book in English about Lublin. In the first quarter of the 14th century, when Lublin gained municipal rights, would you say that is when the city started thriving and started growing?
Well, yes and no. That's more or less a confirmation.
Right.
Lublin was a thriving center.
Oh.
And it was meeting certain requirements, and it had to establish a kind of a city square along certain, according to the Magdeburg law. It would have a parish church. Well, also was a royal town, of course, so it had the castle. And it also gained a degree of self-government, as there was a municipal council.
Right.
Although the borough chief was a nobleman, but the municipal council represented the merchant class and so on, and the wealthier citizens of the city. And yes, so this was but of course, it was the beginning of Lublin growing even quicker. Part of this development involved the stability of the time. So the invasions didn't come to an end, but the Piast dynasty had expanded the borders further to the east into Ruthenia. And so it was far more stable at this time. That indirectly indicates the wealth of the city is the presence of the mendicant orders. The Dominican fathers, which would be very important later on and throughout the history of Lublin, you could say, well, they didn't, as a mendicant order, together with the Franciscan fathers, they didn't receive land when they came. So they had to, gain money from people that were attending their services. And so that meant that the city had to be rich enough to support them.
Right. Well, was it sufficient, or?
Well, that's why they came. Okay. So that's an indication that the city was fairly well off. So, for instance, they were a preaching order, so they had to be popular.
Right.
Actually, the church was the beginning of you could say the beginning of the cultural life of the city. They had organs and so on. They developed organs later on, music and things. So the early, you could say, culture and education, of course, was connected with the church. Not to mention, just a little bit later, things like hospitals and things like that came from the church.
Lublin receiving its municipal rights in 1317 was a watershed moment in the city's development. Next up, we'll ask Professor Grabowski about the privileges the municipal rights gave the city.
What other changes did the municipal right bring to the city?
Well, I think one thing that we have with us to this very day, the coat of arms that they received at that time. So they received this goat, which the earliest record of that goat is already the beginning of the 14th century. Yes, and it only gained that vine a little bit later. That's very, very striking at this point, and that was striking maybe a century later. But that meant that, well, the municipal council, for instance, could stamp documents.
Right.
But the thing is, it's very amusing because, well, coats of arms of countries are usually fairly militant.
Right.
Whereas here you have a goat.
A goat on a vine.
A goat on a vine, eventually on a vine, and that's fairly amusing. But whether it was amusing at the time, that's what the historians wonder about. So one of the historians has two theories. He was saying that the people that designed coats of arms at that time were quite erudite.
Okay.
So either it had to do something with ancient history or mythology of some sort,
okay, or
it had to do with the Bible.
Right.
And with the Bible, you have on the gniezno doors, you have a goat representing a scapegoat.
Right.
And why would there be a scapegoat for the city? Well, I'm just guessing, and actually I haven't come across a good explanation why would there be a scapegoat. But during the Middle Ages, with the type of religiosity you had at that time, when you had crises, then you did penitence.
Right. And
so perhaps a scapegoat might have been connected with some sort of penitence that the residents wanted better times ahead.
Right.
But that's just a guess.
So you're saying,
if I might continue, later on, the source is lost. Right. So we don't know how it was designed, why it was designed. So these are only the historical guesses. But later on, people had to live with this coat of arms for the next centuries. And a contemporary writer in Lublin made an amusing story about how these Lublin merchants went to the prince in Krakow to gain, and they had to come up with a coat of arms, and they had very little money, so they were fooled into accepting a goat.
So you're saying that there's actually no documented, well, as far as we know, about the coat of armor Lublin being the goat.
Well, no, it's known that the goat was the coat of arms, but the reason for it is unknown.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So that gives a lot of room for the imagination for historians and for writers interested in Lublin's history.
The city of Lublin has actually one of the most famous old towns of Poland. It's breathtaking, I would say. I was wondering, though, what are the origins, what are the functions of the old town, where it was built, and what function did they serve?
Yes, well, of course, the old town, of course, was, as I mentioned, was one of the requirements for gaining municipal rights. So it had to be developed according to a specific design. Well, one of the problems was that because of the terrain, it's also among the smaller old towns.
Right.
And they had to make do with what they had. So it's also but it's larger than, for instance, that other older settlement where that church I mentioned, St. Nicholas Church, is located, but still not that large.
No?
Yes, and that's one of its charms, in a sense. But of course, some limitations came of it. If I could just sneak ahead to the future, when Lublin became the seat of one of the tribunals of the Kingdom of Poland, much later, the medieval building that was built for that tribunal sort of had to be rebuilt. They built it in the 18th century. They built a huge tribunal, which was too big for that square in the old town. I find it a little too big for that, because of course that was what one might say nowadays a federal building, and the old town was simply just the city of Lublin.
Right.
So there's that contrast between the state function and a city for people and the merchants and so on, and which had to fit into those city walls. But the last thing I'll mention about that point is towards the end of that period of the Piast dynasty, you could say, that when Lublin, that was in power when Lublin gained its municipal rights. When King Kazimierz was ruling, he built walls around the castle, sort of masonry walls. Before it was still a wooden fortification up until that point. So that puts a nice seal on the Piast period.
As we have seen today, Lublin has a very long, yet at times dramatic history. But places such as the Catholic University of Lublin sufficiently demonstrated the city spirit and their love for freedom. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily. We're on an excursion to the city of Łódź. It's right in the center of the country. Known as the Polish Manchester, it's a city of art and industry. And that's where we are for this series of episodes. Łódź is famous for factories making all kinds of things, as we'll see. In its heyday, it supplied textiles to the whole of Europe. In post-World War II Poland, Łódź also became a factory of dreams. It was the site of the Warsaw Film School at Łódź, and it earned the city the sobriquet of Hollywood. That's right, the Hollywood of Poland. The film school produced such top talents as Roman Polanski, Andrzej Wajda, and Krzysztof Kieślowski, and many others, as we'll see. There are more superlatives in this city, about 75 miles southwest of Warsaw, the capital. Łódź boasts the largest shopping center in Poland, Manufaktura. It's made out of an old factory complex. That's the largest shopping center in Poland. It also boasts the longest pedestrian street in the country, Piotrkowska, where you will find all manner of restaurants, clubs, and just about everything else you'd expect on a pedestrian street, including a statue of Arthur Rubinstein, the famous pianist who was from Łódź. And the pièce de résistance, marrying both technology and art, is the Science and Technology Museum next to the railway station. This is a world-class museum. It looks like something that belongs in the Smithsonian Institution. It's interactive and impressive. That's Łódź, and that's where we are on Poland Daily Travel, your destination for perhaps the best travel about Poland you'll find anywhere. Poland Daily Travel. Like us on YouTube and like us on Facebook. We like you. Watch us now.
Poland Daily Travel. I don't know if I trust a physicist anymore. He's put me to work. I'm having to generate the electricity for this whole building. I feel like Tesla. Well, not really, but something like that. Paweł, what am I doing?
It's harder now.
Come on.
Work hard.
Oh, man.
And you can see you powering the fan and the lights. And
I'm too tall
you
for
ready
this.
You ready to work even harder?
Yeah, it's
3, 2, 1.
midget,
Come on,
Paweł. I'm not a midget.
So it's 100 watts.
My God.
Bulbs.
I got to keep the lights on, folks.
You're powering all of it.
Yeah, okay.
This is a fan, so you can have some fresh air.
I'm not feeling it, though. I'm just feeling my knees hurt.
Work harder, and then you will feel this air blowing.
Oh, my
and
God.
then you can compare how much energy you have converted from your
like the
muscles
Tour de France here.
to electric energy.
I'm creating electric energy, a lot of it.
All right.
I think my hair is standing on end under my cap.
12 minutes to go, and then we can compare your score, okay?
Yeah?
Come on,
okay.
You're generating only something like, more than 100 watts, 300 sometimes, okay?
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Right, so your energy is enough to fit the LED stripe for seconds.
101 seconds.
This fan could be worked for 63 seconds.
Yeah.
All right? And these lamps, the halogen lamps, something like few minutes only.
I never liked halogen lamps.
Oh, come on. That's why we have LEDs now already.
We're in the, did you design this exhibit?
All of them.
I mean,
actually.
they should have had you in the Spanish Inquisition.
Come on.
You're like Torquemada.
Kids have to have a place where they lose some energy.
You take kids and put them to work here?
Sure.
I thought that was illegal like 100 years.
Imagine they want to do this, okay?
They want to do
All
it.
right. So
they want to work for nothing,
That's why we call them kids.
They want to work for nothing, I see. Okay, Poland Daily Travel. I guess I got to keep the energy going. We'll be back after this.
Better and better.
Short break. Okay. This guy needs a whip. Paula, are you having fun with that? You're playing, what is this game called? Air hockey?
It's air hockey, but we want to present like a moment conversion and so on and so on. So it's a lot of physics packed into the very common game, okay?
Okay. So we're in this part of the exhibition where this is the physics exhibition, and you designed all of this.
Well, I help a lot.
Yeah. And it's your idea, basically. Yeah?
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah. And because you are a physicist, right? So what are some other things? These are things to do with aerodynamics and wind, elements of wind or air.
It's a very common phenomena.
Yeah.
We experience wind every day, right?
Yeah.
So then it's time to...
Especially when you eat beans. Just kidding.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Different kind of wind. Anyway, go ahead. That's a biology joke, not a physics joke.
Biology is in...
biology is a different room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Paul is having fun with that.
And the airflow. It's all about aerodynamics. So then we can think about how and why planes fly, okay? So that's why the gliders over here, over your heads. There's a real, well, it's a model of house and the roof. And sometimes the tornado takes the roof when it's blowing too fast. So we're asking the question why and leaving people with this question. And then they discover how it happens.
Excellent. What's this here?
As you can see, this is the wind tunnel.
It's a wind tunnel?
It's a wind tunnel, and you can observe the wind with your own...
Where's the right place to stand? Whoa!
It is. God. Be careful.
Whoa!
It's a real thing. It's almost 100 kilometers per hour. And kids love that place. I will let you come over here.
That was difficult. You
Sure.
want to try it? Paula's going to try it now. Come on. Come on, Paula.
Full power. You ready? That's why you bought this exhibit.
That's exactly
That's why we bought it.
So that Paula could stand there.
Exactly.
Doesn't get better than that, does
Did you
it?
get the picture?
Hallelujah.
Oh, yeah.
For wind tunnels. What else we got here? What else we got here? Do you enjoy that, Paula? That woke you up,
In the
didn't it?
meantime, we can present how plane works.
What is this?
Flies. This is the model of a real plane, okay? And then you can even observe the laminar flow or the turbulent flow when we cross a certain angle of attack. The turbulence appears over the wings, and it's very dangerous for the plane. As you can see, it's not very stable now at the moment. Then we can start to land it very safely, but it's not so easy as it looks like.
Yeah, because you don't want to crash it down.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So this is the principle of landing and taking off.
Exactly.
What is this up here? We have a...
It's a real glider. It's a Polish type Foka 5. It's an old wooden glider, but very, very well known in Polish glider society. It's a real thing hanging over our heads, just to expose the actually flying mechanisms.
Hey, Paula, what's this? Come here. There's something else for you to play with, I think. What did you have to do?
Sure. Just try. This is the idea. You can touch everything here. You can try if you can keep the balloons in the mid-air somehow.
You want to keep it in the middle?
Yeah, somehow.
In the middle.
So yeah, try
That's too high,
try to slow down the fan, but not too slow. All right, and then power up. Oh, more power.
A little more, but not too much. Oh, it's not so easy, is it?
It is.
Yeah. And what is this demonstrating? I mean, other than that balloons go up?
We are demonstrating that sometimes the drag is a very important part of this whole equation. Okay, so you can have the lift, you can have the drag, and you can probably experience something very similar in a vertical wind tunnel when you're testing these things and preparing yourself for the parachute jumps. Okay. All right.
I see. Very good. What else we got here?
Hydrodynamics. It's a very Bernoulli principle over there.
Let's go over there and see some of that.
Sure.
Because this is a really interesting exhibition right here. As we can see, all the air stuff. I bet the kids love it.
Yeah, this is the one part of this huge exhibit.
Yeah.
Over like 80 exhibits located in this part. There is a new building. So you can see these boats. And when we start the water flowing besides, well, in between.
Okay.
It looks like they should be pulled away, but they are somehow pushed together because the pressure in the middle between them is lower than on the sides. Okay. So that's why when you blow between two balloons, and they are getting closer and closer, and they are not falling away.
That's right.
Yeah? That's why. Okay.
That's very interesting.
This is another lovely effect, Magnus effect. It's called Magnus effect. And then you can observe a real thing, which is this is the goal. Are you a fan of football or soccer?
Sure, I used to play.
Oh, right. So this is the curve, the banana, okay? You can see that these balls hanging here, showing the trajectory of the goal when you spin the ball.
Okay.
All right? And then when you spin the ball, it's happening like the ball is spinning.
Right.
Okay, so we have spinning cylinder already, and then we have the air going perpendicular to this direction.
Right.
And this cylinder is on the angle. Okay. So why? it's not deflecting upwards and downwards, it's deflecting to the side.
Right.
The same thing happening with your ball when you turn the ball and then it's going through the air.
When you spin the ball? Like on your finger? Or?
Oh no, when you kick the ball with the spinning ball.
When you kick it with a spin.
All right.
Like you're doing a corner kick.
Exactly.
You're doing a corner kick and you want to.
And then you observe the curvature of this trajectory.
Yeah, you do that on purpose.
Everybody is
not so easy to do.
Not so easy. Yeah. That's why. And now you know how it happens.
Now I know the principle. Right. Hey, Poland Daily Travel. We are learning a lot about physics. Man, we could go on. At least I could for a couple of days in here. I love this stuff. And want to thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a great pleasure. Can we come back and spend more time?
For sure.
It would be great to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your visit.
Okay, that's Paweł, and it's me, Will. And Paula, somewhere, she's been, one of these exhibits has captured her imagination, and I don't know where she is. Anyway, see you next time on Poland Daily Travel. And thanks for watching.
See you in Łódź.
Yeah, come to Łódź. Yeah, come to Łódź.